Sorry, I'm trying to figure out this new Rumble app. I'm like a Mark Carney boomer here, just trying to figure out how to turn my camera on.
Pleb, for those who don't know it, because look, the last interview we did together 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Who are you? Tell the world, because you're going to have a nice, beautiful Rumble audience today to expose yourself to, politically speaking.
I just want to say thank you. I don't normally do interviews. I usually turn them down, but I could not turn down an interview from you because you were the person who literally launched me. You're the first person who brought me onto your live stream. You're the first person who started sharing my tweets on Twitter back in the day. When you had a job. When I had a job, when I had a 9-to-5 job. Exactly. You're the first person to show me love. You and Jack Posobiec. And for this, I will be forever grateful. So I'm happy to be on the show.
It is funny because I make jokes like people back in the day thought we were sincerely sparring with one another because you're a Pierre Poilievre bro and I'm a PPC bro. And look, I make fun of you when you say silly things. What was the last one where I said you're better than this? And I think that always gets misinterpreted. But what was that post where you said...
We were debating over the fact that Maxime Bernier has been very lazy for the last 4 years, has not done any work. And all of a sudden, a month before the election, this guy is working. He's showing up on podcasts. He's actually working instead of collecting a paycheck. I just thought that the timing was a little bit suspicious.
Yeah, and to which my needle was, it's real suspicious someone does interviews and campaigns in the month leading up to an apparently obvious election. My crowd knows now what's going on. We have the election going. You and I have been talking, the market predictions, which are typically the most accurate way of forget the polls.
Correct.
You look at the markets.
Correct.
The markets are not perfect, but the markets took a massive bump yesterday, or at least the one I'm following over on Kalshi. And full disclosure, I've told everybody, it's not a wager. It's not a bet. It's an investment in what I think were imbalanced odds from the get-go. It was never 60-40, and it sure as sugar was not 16% likelihood of a conservative majority government. What happened yesterday? You were at the Pierre Poilievre rally?
I was at the rally yesterday, and it was the craziest political rally I've ever been to. I drove to Toronto yesterday from Montreal because I wanted to be there for the campaign launch. And I was blown away, man, by the amount of people that showed up in a very liberal riding. You guys got to know, your audience got to know, Toronto is like California in the United States, you know? It is a very, very liberal city. And last night, the turnout for Pierre Poilievre was 2,500 people. They turned away hundreds of people from coming into the venue, and they even gave them free t-shirts because so many people were not going to be able to get into this rally yesterday. And I don't know, man, it just gave me a lot of hope, you know, especially, and I don't know if that affected the odds, because we were talking about the odds the other day, how Pierre Poilievre had an 11% bounce on Polymarket and Kalshi in a 48-hour period. But it really started, I think, when he started hammering down on immigration a little bit more in his campaign. I think the base really wanted to see him talk about immigration, because the funny thing with immigration here in Canada, I'm going to let you guys in on a little fact. The majority of people are fed up with the amount of immigration here in Canada, and this transcends party lines. Conservatives care. I have conversations, Viva, with liberals in real life, and the one thing we agree on is immigration.
The only reason I'm laughing is I just noticed who and what was above your head. All right, we'll get into that. Oh, God. We'll get into that in a second, people. So immigration. I mean, you're in Montreal now. You were not always in Montreal.
I am a Montreal, Quebec boy, born and raised. I did move to Ottawa for a couple of years, but I was still in the Quebec side. I've technically never left Quebec in my whole life.
All right, now tell the world. I mean, because I talk about the fact, in Canada, 1 in 4 people in Canada were born outside of Canada. 20% of Parliament is not Canadian born. You're in Montreal. I mean, tell us what it's like.
In the last few years, I don't really go to the city anymore, but it has changed. I mean, just I travel a lot, and when I come into the airport, it looks a lot different than it did a decade ago. And for example, in Montreal, we have a famous Greek neighborhood. What is it? Park X, Viva?
Yeah,
Park X used to be a famous Greek neighborhood that has been completely taken over by Indians. in Park X. So the demographics are definitely shifting. We're seeing Palestine protests every single weekend in this city. The demographics have definitely shifted. The vibe has definitely shifted. Montreal's not what it was 20 years ago.
No,
and we had multiculturalism 20 years ago, but now what we have now is just completely on steroids and out of control.
I said it, I don't know how publicly I said it, because you can't even say these things without people just reflexively calling you whatever phobe-ism. When I landed in Toronto for a Rumble event, and walking through the airport, it was like being in another country. And people are going to say, well, that's only based on skin color. It could very easily have been a bunch of Caucasians who were dressed in garb where I would have known I'm in another country. It's like landing in another country. Yeah. I was in an Uber talking to the Uber driver. He was an Canadian. Yeah. He's like, it's out of control. It's not even the native Canadian Indian population doesn't like it. Crime is out of control. Traffic is out of control.
That is the secret that nobody knows. Okay. I speak to immigrants who came here 20, 30 years ago. They are the most anti-immigration people in this country. White people want immigration way more than immigrants do. Like, they are they want to put a cap on this. You know, they came to a country that was supposed to be great, but it's really not, due to a lot of factors, but immigration is definitely one of them. So, I mean, you bring over, how many people did we bring over in 2023? Over a million people?
Yeah, it depends if you trust or believe the numbers, but it's been over 500,000 for 6 years, give or take. I mean, Pleb, and it was Sam Cooper, the journalist, who brought this to my attention. We're at 343 ridings now, or 344. And it was 338 back in 2001. So they've had to add 5 more ridings because of immigration, 97% of which is because of population growth, 97% of which is immigration, and we're seeing it. I mean, it's what it is. Pierre had to change tack at some point, especially when Carney, who's the Kamala 2.0, stole his axe to the tax, which was their tax to axe in the first place. Now they're on immigration. Whether or not it's the symbiotic relationship or people evolving in time, or they're actually following you, you're calling some decent shots as far as predictions go. What is the sentiment? I don't care what district you're in Montreal. I ran in Westmount NDG, but I no longer live there. What is the sentiment locally, and what is the sentiment when you go to the rallies? Protesters, counter protesters, whatever you want to call them, at the conservative rallies, are they there?
So yesterday when I was streaming, I asked people in the lineup. By the way, I've never seen something like this. The hotel, people were lined up to get into his rally like 2 hours before the rally started. There were hundreds of people there. And man, did you watch the stream, or did you see the video of the crowd? There were hundreds of people there. And man, did you watch the stream, or did you see the video of the crowd? The hotel was completely jammed with people waiting to get in, but the parking lot, I've never seen something like this. The line went through the entire parking lot all the way out to the street. It was truly, truly insane.
The next line of attack is Pierre Poilievre is copying Trump so much he's pulling Trump-sized rallies. But people are going to say 2,500 is not that much, but that's the cap of the rally, right? And then people had to wait outside.
Yeah, of course. There was hundreds of more who didn't get in yesterday. Yeah, it would have been much bigger. I don't know if Pierre's doing this on purpose, booking like venues that are like gonna sell out like that. But like, I think this guy needs bigger venues, man, because there's always overflow. His last couple events, there's been overflow at. And this is why I don't believe the polls, Viva. I see this with my own eyes. I see Canadians an hour and a half in the you know how cold it is in Canada. You've lived here your whole life. Waiting in freezing cold, -10 to get into a political rally in liberal Toronto. It is crazy, dude. It's crazy.
I saw in the chat, people said, bring up the Apple video, because that's thus far been Pierre Poilievre's, I won't say claim to fame, but it's a pretty good moment. I'm not playing the whole thing, but
on the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What do you mean?
What does that mean?
Well,
NPC. This is NPC talk. I read that online.
It goes on. He just says, "What do you mean? What do you mean? What does that mean? I'm gonna continually needle Pierre Poilievre until he starts doing what I think he should be doing, which is more of those. Not necessarily only with friendly media. I know everyone says he did Jordan B. Peterson. He's not. He could pull a Kamala in the negative sense, where he can screw himself by not doing podcast format interviews. Whereas I still think Carney is Kamala 2.0. But
it was a mistake. I called it out. I don't know if you saw me on X the day that PBD called him out. I said it was a mistake not to do that show. And I got flamed, by the way, from people like, that's not a Canadian podcast. It's like, yeah, but he has millions of subscribers on YouTube and they're going to clip things out. And it's the opportunity to be able to go viral. You know, that is where Pierre's superpower has been, is how he just chews up these reporters over the years, makes them look like fools, goes viral. That was like what launched him. Like we saw the Apple video. The Apple video wasn't even the only, there was like at least 4, 5, 6 other occasions where Pierre just eats these reporters alive. And I think that's what made him famous. And one of the things we're not seeing now as we're getting closer to the election is Pierre's a little less combative. You know, he doesn't want to upset the liberal media, I guess. But the thing that really made his base fall in love with him was his ability to fight for conservative values and conservative ideas and make these crooked reporters just look foolish. That was my favorite part about covering Pierre over the last 2 years.
Well, I think he needs to be, I won't say conservative in terms of like conservative for the name, but he's got to be. I think he's got to start getting a little bit more solid.
You can't run a Trump campaign in Canada, okay? But listen. You can't run on Trump. You can't run the Trump platform in Canada. You can't. Could you run the Trump platform in California and win? Because Canada and California is the same thing. If Trump ran in California, he'd lose.
Well, but the pushback. Well, first, I mean, you're right to some extent in that Canada doesn't. Even conservative Canadians, I don't know what percentage of them don't like Trump or have a negative impression of him. But Trump did very well in California, save and except for the illegal votes that they counted for a month afterwards in LA. And so people would say, maybe one more election cycle and you can actually turn California. But there is not running like Trump. And then there's picking fights with Trump that you don't necessarily need to pick, that I don't think translate into any increased support in Canada. And I
disagree. I disagree. Canada's not a real country, Viva Fry. You left this place. Canada is not a real country. So we spent 10 years of our country literally falling apart, right? We have people can't even afford homes. They're living at their houses with their parents in their 30s. We have record lineups, okay, for food banks. We have homeless camps all over the country where we never even saw them before. We have crime going through the roof right now. And Canadians, number one issue going into this election is Donald Trump by an overwhelming amount, which proves that we're not a real country. So yes, I think he has to hammer Trump. Do I like seeing him hammering Trump? No. Does he have to hammer Trump if he wants to win? 100%.
I see. Whose polls? If I know that it's a sort of not a loaded question, but I'm going to be able to wiggle out.
I've seen the data from all the polling companies, and they ask Canadians, "What's your top issue?" And it's Trump on every single poll. Yeah, it's Trump.
I think that is because of the nature of the polls. I think they're fake polls to begin with because they're probably getting a disproportionate amount of liberals to begin with, and so yes,
that is something else. As you look into the Ecos polls, the ones that predicted the liberal shift. You know the Ecos polls that had these ridiculous. If you look at the sampling data on that, they are oversampling university-educated Canadians by a lot in those polls. So yes, there is a lot of deception in these polls. It's definitely not accurate, but you know what is accurate? The betting markets. I think we could both agree that the betting markets are probably the most accurate predictor of the feeling of the people and what's going to happen in the next election.
Yeah, the markets can also be influenced by a few big bets or a few people with fat fingers, at least temporarily. I'm convinced that there were at least.
Yeah, but then the other side's going to buy it up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a giant marketplace with millions of dollars. It's hard to manipulate markets at those sizes.
I love it that you say Canada's not a real country. This is a Democrat from America saying Canadians are selling their homes in South Florida in droves in Arizona. But I look it up. One of the legit criticisms against Florida is that insurance is a problem.
Elbows up, Viva. Where's your elbows?
Oh, we're getting elbows up. But you mentioned,
let's go.
Canadians are being forced to sell their second homes because the cost of living in Canada is outrageous. You get taxed off the ass, and the value of the Canadian dollar is so weak right now to maintain a U.S. property is
and
exorbitant.
Now the media is like, people are canceling their vacations to America. How much of that has to do with the dollar trading at 69 cents? How much? I'd say a vast majority. But the media is spinning this like, oh no, elbows up. I'm canceling my trip to Florida. I'm a good Canadian.
I'm going to go strong on this and say all of it is, but even in the minds of the people who now say I won't go to Trump's America, it's money based only. And I know a bunch of people. I know a bunch of people that say, "Oh, we're not coming to Florida now." I was like, "Of course you're not. It's freaking expensive," and and that's the reason why. But now they get to cloak their economic hardships.
Virtue signal.
Yes.
I did it because of Trump.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, not because it's double the price it was like 5 years ago to visit the States. No. It's Trump, right? We're going hard here, man. Election is 36 days away. Viva, are you excited?
Well,
this is the Super Bowl right now. It's prime time.
I'm excited, but I'm also nervous. I mean, a conservative minority government is already a step in the right direction, but then you're going to have a coalition between the Liberals and the NDP. It's got to be, and I say this, it's got to be.
That's why we don't split the vote. This is why we don't got to split the vote, Viva. What are you doing?
I'm not for. I don't buy the vote splitting argument anymore. What I think could be potentially logical, and I do speak with Maxime, cooperation in ridings where there's zero chance for the PPC candidate, but a potential for the Conservative Party of Canada candidate. One of those ridings, I think, could be Nepean. And we're going to get to the CPC.
No. Nepean is Chandra. We got to get Chandra to split that vote hard because Chandra is going to run as an independent.
You got to tell them who these people are.
Candidate, and we have Mark Carney. Chandra, by the way, I am the architect of Chandra for prime minister. When the Liberals were having their leadership race, they had 5-6 candidates, and I ran a campaign online to convince people to buy memberships to the Liberal Party so we could vote in the worst candidate possible. And his name was Chanda Arya. He could barely speak English, but as he started releasing his campaign, his campaign was probably one of the best campaigns out of everyone. But yes, we tried to choose who would be the next Liberal leader, and they had 400,000 signups, Viva, a record for this, and only 150,000 people were allowed to vote. They threw out 250,000 signups because of what we did.
I'm not versed with everything here. This is Chanda Arya. I didn't realize that they removed him from the leadership race as well. What happened there? I mean, I know that they removed Ruby Dalla. They
took him out of the race because he was going to win. We almost turned a meme into the next leader of the Liberal Party. We almost memed this guy into the next prime minister of Canada, and they panicked. They tossed him out of the race. They tossed Ruby out of the race because that's who the Conservatives were backing in this race. We had a lot of ballots. A lot of people. And, I would not normally interfere in a leadership race. That's not my style. But the fact is that this leadership race was going to determine who the next prime minister of Canada was. So this is important. I believe that Canadians should be able to vote on who their prime minister is. A lot of people agreed with me. And that's why we had so many signups.
But is he's still running in the Nepean riding where...
Yeah, apparently. I don't know. I'm hearing that Chandra's going to run. This is the Conservative candidate, by the way, who had 1,000 followers on X about 36 hours. I just went, I sound like Mark Carney.
Don't worry, you don't.
By the way, I thought this guy was supposed to be smarter than Trudeau. He doesn't know how to talk. You notice that?
Oh, dude, I made fun of him. I put out that video. It was the 76-second clip where he's wearing that yellow and blue collared jacket. I don't know.
Yes.
And he says 21 times. He's got two. He does the and then he says things twice. He repeats it a second time to make it somehow either more mesmerizing or more impactful.
Do you want to know what my theory is behind his ums and ahs and uhs and whatever? I think this guy's lying all the time. I think that
absolutely
when you're lying, you need to think a little harder. And so that's why he pauses. He goes, because his brain is working in overdrive, trying to come up with the next lie. If he wasn't lying, he would just sound natural when he's talking, like when me and you are talking right now. But I can tell this guy is definitely a liar just by the amount of ums and ahs and pauses he does. And Trudeau did the same thing. But Mark Carney's even worse than Trudeau when it comes to this. I thought Trudeau was bad with the ums.
I want to see
Mark Carney is next level.
Oh, it's outrageous. I want to see if I can find the clip where he was talking about how he moved the assets of Brookfield Management to New York, and then
6 days after. So Trump threatens tariffs on Canada. 6 days later, he moves his business to the United States of America because of the tariffs. Instead of staying in Canada, be like, you know what? We're coming for you, Trump. Elbows up. We're keeping our business here in Canada. Elbows up. We're patriots. No, he moved it to the United States to save his, I guess, his shareholders money, to make more money out of pure greed. And isn't it funny, by the way, how Mark Carney is this global banker, the central banker, WEF guy, and like the NDP, the far left, they're all moving their votes over to him, right? Like they're the party who fights against corporate greed, and they're putting in the central banker. They're going to vote for a central banker. Is this a joke?
So Brookfield's moved its assets to New York.
They moved and jobs.
2024. Yeah, it was part of. I'm just reading the summary. It was part of a broader scheme to make it more profitable. I didn't realize that it had. I thought it predated the Trump tariffs, but
listen, Viva Fry. Listen, Mark Carney took our gerbs. Okay, he took our gerbs to the United States, and this guy is supposed to be Team Canada, and he's taking our gerbs. It's unbelievable. This is the Canadian patriot the left chose to
I want to make sure
the left chose to like lead Team Canada or Canada, I guess we would call it.
I want to get
it's unbelievable.
It's amazing. Well, so as the meme goes, I said, like, you know, in Nepean, the PPC candidate probably doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. The Conservative Party, maybe people. I mean, Nepean might be like, I don't know, it might be more liberal than westbound NDG.
Bro, but there's a cheat code to Nepean that not many people know, and this is due to mass immigration. Nepean has a lot of Indians. And that's why Chanda Arya was the nominee for like the last 10 years and kept winning his seats. And if Chanda Arya runs as an independent and he gets his Nepean base to show up and vote for him, this could be bad news for Mark. Mark Carney might lose his seat over Chanda Arya because the conservatives will vote for the conservatives, the liberals will vote for the liberals, and I guess some people from the Indian community are going to continue supporting Chanda. And there's a lot of Indians in Nepean, and this could play huge in this next election.
I want to see who are the Nepean candidates. So Chanda might run as an independent.
That's what I'm hearing, and I hope he does. And I'll gladly even donate to his campaign if he runs.
So you got Mark Carney, liberal. Barbara Bullock,
yes.
Conservative. Other parties, as I asked Maxime, and apparently they have a candidate there. I don't know who it was. And that's all that even Grok is giving me by way of immediate answer. Go follow Barbara, everybody. I would, yes. If we could do one thing, if this could be the GameStop of Canadian politics.
Yes, this is GameStop.
Barbara in and make Mark Carney lose in his own, one that he hand selected.
And us signing up to the liberal leadership race was the GameStop of politics as well. But they had to stop it because we were winning. They had to, just like during GameStop, when they halted all the stocks. You remember that? They had to halt the stocks all the time. They had to cheat, and they did the same thing here in the leadership race.
Pleb, it's amazing. I'm going to continue talking about some of this stuff before getting into the American stuff. The crowd, if they didn't know you, they know you, and they probably love you because you are you're doing great work. Where do people find you? I know everybody's going to say YouTube, CommyTube, whatever. Open up a Rumble channel, but you got to build that up slowly.
I'm just waiting for, Rumble's throwing bags at everyone, by the way. So I'm just waiting for Chris to slide in my DMs and throw me a bag, and I'll be glad to come on Rumble. But if you guys want to follow me on YouTube, Pleb Reporter on X for all your Canadian updates. I'm basically a Pierre Poilievre fan account. So if you like Pierre Poilievre, give me a follow on X.
And I tell you this, we're going to continue having our humorous interactions. I know what is going on. I know what I believe is going to happen.
Do you really want Canada to have more communism, Viva? Do you think that the conservatives, you really think we could do 4 more years of these liberals? Do you think the conservatives are going to be the same as the liberals?
They're going to be less bad, and they will certainly put a pause to the destruction.
So what? Well, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I can't take any more liberals, Viva. I can't take 4. I can't take 4 more years of this. I can't.
You'll understand my thought process in a bit. When I'm going to play a video after you leave, which will explain a bit my thought process. But I'm going to give Pierre the kick in the butt that I think he needs. I think it's a done deal because if Canadians are dumb enough to vote for the Liberals again, they will inherit the shit that Canada's going to turn into in a liberal government. It's impossible to me that anybody could be stupid enough to do it. So the only question is going to be corruption or ignorance. And then you gotta awaken the masses. And
it's crazy. Canada's this crazy place chat. Like Canada, we have a country of collectivists here who just love to jump at the opportunity to be collectivists. We saw it during COVID. We're now seeing it with the tariffs. And the thing that sickens me with the Canadian politicians is how they abuse their own people and they just take advantage of the fact that Canadians are do-gooders. They're nice people. They believe in teamwork and we're all going to in this together. And our politicians abuse that fact and it makes me sick.
The do-gooders, even to the point of destroying the people who don't agree with your do-goodism. That's what Canada is. People confuse politeness with subservience. And I say politeness is different than subservience. They look the same right up until the point where you don't do what they want you to do. And then you see the subservience actually turns into total domination because if you're not going to be subservient, well, damn you, you're going to be subservient to me.
What a pleasure to come back on this show 2 years later, Viva.
I remember I was up at my parents' college and it was a fun discussion then. And the world has changed. Keep doing what you're doing because I think, Pierre needs the amplification, which is exactly why I think he should have gone on PBD and others. He should end up on Rogan. There's no reason not to.
I pushed him to go on Rogan how many times, Viva? How many times over the last year I've said Pierre needs to go on Rogan?
Well, the question is whether or not he gets the invite. Rogan does it by what he's interested in. And if he didn't get the request from Team Rogan, then he's got nothing to accept.
Rogan has shouted him out many times on his podcast. I've covered this. Like 3 or 4 times he's given shout outs to Pierre Poilievre. I'm sure he would have been more than happy to have Pierre come on the podcast because Rogan refuses to come to Canada now. He won't travel to Canada until the Liberals are gone.
That was one of the potential. He won't come for UFC. What is it, 235 in Montreal?
Yeah, he's not even his UFC events in Canada. He's not even showing up.
I think we could make a move to get Pierre on Rogan. I think he needs to do the podcast because on the one hand, people say it's an American podcast, so therefore it's not relevant to Canadian politics. Well, I say horse crap for 2 reasons. First of all, a lot more Canadians get good media from American podcasts than from the CBC. Second of all, if there's going to be election chicanery in Canada, like we're seeing in Romania, like we're seeing across the world, you want Americans to know about it, to put it on blast. So it's dumb, and he needs to wake up from this.
If I find out that Rogan extended an invitation and the Conservatives turned it down, I'll be the first to blast because that is a huge mistake. And I don't think Pierre's dumb enough to turn down Rogan or his advisors. Well, I hope they're not dumb enough to say no to Rogan.
And then, but PBD is, he's top 5. Whether people like, he might be a distant third to Rogan.
Here's the thing with I've been watching PBD since the start. I love PBD, but PBD had friggin' Andrew Tate on the episode literally right before. Do you think that's good politically? How do you think that's going to play out in the Canadian media sphere? How do you think that's going to play out?
But it doesn't.
Pierre goes on a podcast that hosts a convicted sexual whatever headline or
accused.
Don't they have.
Don't end up with a defamation lawsuit.
No, that's why I put my quotations. Like whatever bashing headline they have, they would have eaten him alive for that.
They're going to eat him alive no matter what, because it's what wokeism does. No matter what Pierre does, if he eats the wrong apple, they're going to go after him. So he may as well get them going after him for some big reasons that put him on the map. Like, this is what people don't understand. I think you understand it. They will go after him no matter what. Back in the Trump election, if Hinchcliffe hadn't made the joke about Puerto Rico, they would have feigned outrage about something else. It's what they do.
Yes.
And so playing into the game, you're handicapping yourself where you need to be going out and getting on them and hitting it up. Patrick Bet-David, nobody is going to fault anybody with any degree of seriousness for going on PBD. Coming on my channel, they can pull up a few tweets. They say, how could you possibly go on this guy's channel? The what was her name? Theresa May? Who's the drunken idiot?
Elizabeth May, the drunk? Yeah, okay, yeah.
So I went a little too hard on Elizabeth May. But nobody can fault anybody for going on PBD. And if he goes on Rogan, he's going to get the same blowback anyhow. So he may as well have gone on PBD and then worked his way in. But it's not over yet. The election hadn't been called yet. So it's a different world now. Let's try to get Rogan to reach out to Pierre Poilievre.
Let's do it. I'm on that. Let's go.
Right,
Pierre Poilievre on Joe Rogan. We agree on this.
PPC brother. I can't go this way. PPC brother and CPC brother collide. What do twin powers activate? Okay, whatever.
Yes, or whatever.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
I'm going to screen grab that. It's a bunch of right-wing extremists. Pleb, it's great to see you again. If I get back to Canada, I'll come and see you. If you get down to Florida, I got some nice freshly squeezed OJ for you.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Dude, go. Have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. That's the Pleb, people.